Well, I left this amp running for about 5 hours last night. After I set the bias, it was came to me set idling at 23%. It's now idling about 53%, which is a much better place. And the problem the amp originally came in for was that tea kettle whistle. And after the amp had been on about 5 hours last night, it started to do it a very slight amount, but it was late at night and I had to stop. So I turned it off and I've switched it on, and I'm waiting for the tea kettle to come back, at which point I will pull tubes and see if I can isolate where it is, if it's in a particular channel or if it's in the output or whatever. These mystery problems are always fun. If I cannot isolate it by pulling tubes, then the next step is to use a can of compressed air to rapidly cool areas and a heat gun to rapidly heat areas, and see if I can make it do it on demand. But for right now, it's just going to be running in the background while I do other work, because that's part of the fun of this. All right, I found the source of that tea kettle whistle. Got a microphonic tube here. Very common for JJ 6v6S's in hang-down combos. They are prone to this. This one, I think, is bringing this one out. Or maybe they're both bad. I predict with a new pair of electroharmonics or TADs, this will go away, but think how bad it would have been while the tube was vibrating freely before in the loose socket without the bear trap. So stay tuned and I'll get this rock solid. All right, these new electroharmonics have been in for about an hour. Bias about the same as the 6v6, the JJs. And no squeal, no microphonics, so I think those are probably good. If you listen carefully, hopefully it picks it up. There's a slight staticky noise. It kind of goes. I'll track that down next. Okay, the remaining intermittent noise is definitely in the reverb channel, the vibrato channel. And if I measure the non-DC side of this plate, this coupling cap rather, I'm measuring almost no voltage, just about what I get in the air. If I measure on this one, also within good spec. If I measure at this junction here of this 22 and the 500 microfarad going to the reverb, that's too much DC there. Now, a lot of people would instantly say, okay, this old cap is leaking and I'm going to get rid of it. And what they would do is they would take it out and probably put an orange drop in there, and all the noise would be gone and the DC would be gone, and they would think that's because they had an old leaky cap. These caps don't leak very often. The blue Ajax caps almost never leak unless you're talking about the 22 nanofarad 400 volts in the phase inverter output on a AB165 basement. What happens though is, let me see if I can move this cap so you can see. This eyelet here, which should have no DC on it, which is after this coupling cap, is really close to this eyelet, which has got almost 300 volts on it. And over time, the board itself just picks up on moisture and stuff, and voltage begins to leak from here to here. Also wants to leak. Some Fenders have this treble cap here, and it leaks into here. On this one, the caps in the tone stack have no leakage. So I've got DC leakage here. And the way to fix that is for me to pull these components out of these two eyelets and get all the old solder out of these eyelets, soak the area in isopropyl alcohol, and then drive that out by heating the eyelets and then heating up the board, then putting everything back together. And at that point I should have no DC here. The reason that putting an orange drop in here gives the illusion that this was a bad cap is because people resolder when they put the orange drop in, and that heats up that area and drives the DC out a little bit. I'm going to do it hopefully semi-permanently. I mean, it will need to be redone in 10-15 years, but it should last a long time. Okay, now I've got all these things disconnected, and at this B plus node I'm measuring 358 volts DC. Before I had about 200 millivolts of leakage into this eyelet, and I was measuring a full volt on the board here. So that full volt has dropped down to essentially nothing. So the DC leakage is out of here. DC leakage between these eyelets is still almost nothing. And at this eyelet itself, I have no more DC leakage. I can measure different parts of the board now to see where I might have some more. Got 300 millivolts here, that's not too bad. 200 there. So there's a little bit of voltage built up in the board here, almost half a volt in this area. It's not making it through into these eyelets, but it's trying to reach them. So I'll do a similar thing over here, not because there's a problem now, but because a problem is developing. And I'll have it open. It's the best time to get rid of the problem. And check some other places you can't see on camera. There are common places for there to be leakage. Yeah, I'm getting about half a volt in the board near some other B plus nodes. In the tremolo, about 200 millivolts in the phase inverter area over here. That's low. Usually there's a lot right here where this node is. Overall, this is pretty good shape. This is going to be incredibly quieter now, and this will be still mo better. Okay, after doing all that, the half volt I had here is now down to almost nothing. I can get that better, but that's fine. That's not close to anything really. This node here that was so bad had 200 millivolts. Almost nothing. So, more importantly, a big rushing water noise that was there is no longer there. So before I deal with the speaker and that reverb cable, let's hear this thing. This is not the final playing video where you're going to hear it mic'd up with a mic on the speaker and all that. This is just going to be what the phone hears. So, oh, it helps if I plug in, I suppose. Sorry. I was in fix-it mode, not play-it mode. Balanced sound. Not as much low end as I would like. There might be the pots on the bass. Something I forgot to check before, and that might be throwing off the low end a little bit. So let me check that real quick, and that is the value of the mids resistors, which started off life at 6.8 Ks, 6.99, 6.93. So those are within tolerance. So now that I've got all the rushing water sounds out, and I'm pretty sure I've got that tea kettle whistle gone, I'm gonna look and see if anything else has drifted in here. It might explain why I don't quite have the low end I would like. Even turning the bass pots up quite a bit doesn't give me the oomph I'm really after. So I will find out that next, and then we'll look at that reverb cable and the speakers. Oh, on the reverb foot switch cable, it was as I feared. Someone had tried to repair it. They had a bad solder joint. I fixed that, but there's a break in the white conductor. It looks like this one underneath. And well, I could fix it, find if the break's right here, cut it off and redo it. There's no guarantee it won't just break again here, here, here. They're garbage, basically. So I could fix it for about $40 worth of money of labor, and I have no guarantee how long it'll stay fixed, or I can get a replacement for about 30 bucks. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to replace that because these are pretty much junk. All right, I've got two remaining issues in this amp. Number one, oh, by the way, all the preamp wiring changes I made did take away the thudding and the tremolo in the background. Number one, the reverb pot is really scratchy. It has no DC on it. It's just that pot needs to be changed. I think I would change the bass and treble pots at the same time just to get those really right, because right now I'm still not thrilled with the response of them, even though the speaker was part of that. It had a very noisy 7025 old one in V2, so that there was a bad noise at all times on the reverb channel, the vibrato channel. And this is the actual self noise of that channel now. I moved one of the other old 7025s to V2 and put a tongue saw in the tremolo driver. Put the more expensive tubes where they matter. So this is the actual noise floor of the amp. This is the noise floor when it's on the bench. I'm also a little bit not pleased with how microphonic this grid wire here is. This one's not so bad, but this one's really bad. So I think I'm going to replace this wire with the shielded. So new reverb pot, probably new treble and bass pots, shield that, and I think we should be good to go. Shielding's a no-brainer. They did it on the inputs of these, not the volume returns. Later silver faces, they did it on the inputs and the volume returns. But just moving this wire, I can change the noise floor quite a bit. And this bare wire doesn't want to stay in place. Oh, someone in the comments in one of the earlier videos had asked about where to twist and how to do lead dress. So I think I've shown the lead dress pretty well here. These wires here are carrying both B plus and signal, and the B plus both partially shields the signal wire, though not as well in this one that doesn't have as much of a twist as others, but also just gives, each wire that's twisted together gives mechanical support. But as you can hear here with this grid wire, if it's up against the B plus, there's some noise. If I lower it, it goes down. So that's self noise based on the position of this wire, put there where it's noisiest. Even with the shielding in place, is best when it's down low. So if it wasn't microphonic, if it was just subject to noise, I could just make sure this wire can't move. But given that it's microphonic as well as being subject to moving, it will earn that shield.